We all know that feeling of stress, right? That pressure you feel before a huge test, or that knot in your stomach when things get complicated. But what if you could actually see your stress? What if you could stop treating it like some vague, invisible force and start managing it like something you can actually measure and control? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. Yeah, that feeling of being completely overwhelmed, it happens to all of us. But here's the thing. Understanding why you're feeling that way is the very first step to taking back control. And the key to that understanding is a super simple, but honestly really powerful visual tool. All right, so before we go any further, let's just get one thing straight. And this might sound a little weird, but stress isn't always the enemy. In fact, sometimes it can be your greatest ally. I want you to think of your stress response as your body's built-in superhero mode. Seriously, when you're facing a challenge, your brain sounds this internal alarm. Your heart starts beating a little faster. You feel way more alert. It's literally getting you ready for action. It's an ancient survival mechanism, and it is brilliant at its job. This is where we really see the two different faces of stress. On one hand, you've got that helpful stress, that short-term kick that helps you focus and absolutely crush a presentation. But what happens when that alarm bell never ever turns off? Well, that's when you get into harmful, chronic stress, the kind that leads straight to burnout. So how in the world can we see this balance and know when that alarm has been on for way too long? Okay, let's use a powerful metaphor to bring this whole idea to life. It's a pretty simple idea, right? Just imagine that every single one of us is carrying around a bucket, and all the stress we experience is like water filling it up. Now, some buckets might be bigger, some might be smaller, but we've all got one. And as life happens, day in and day out, that water level just keeps on rising. A lot of what fills your bucket isn't some giant flood. It's just these small, constant drips. Think about your average week. A pop quiz, drip. A confusing group project, drip. Running late to class, drip. By themselves, they're not a big deal at all, but they just keep coming, and that water level just creeps higher and higher. And then, of course, there are the big splashes. These are not drips, oh no. These are the moments that can fill your bucket in an instant. We're talking about things like serious family issues, a really tough breakup, or that crushing academic pressure. These are the kinds of stressors you feel immediately. And man, they can raise that water level fast. So you've got these constant drips coming in, and then you've got these occasional big splashes, all pouring into your bucket. Sooner or later, you've got to ask the question, what happens when it gets full? And this is it. This is the tipping point. This is the moment when stress stops being some quiet feeling in the background and starts actively spilling out and disrupting your life. Overflow isn't just a metaphor. It's a very, very real state of being completely overwhelmed. And that overflow, it can look and feel a lot like this. I mean, does any of this sound familiar? Finding it basically impossible to focus on anything? Feeling irritable and snapping at your friends for no good reason? That's not a character flaw, that is a sign. It's your body and mind basically screaming that the pressure is just too high. And that's really the crucial point here. Overflowing isn't about the amount of stress you have. No, it's about the imbalance, the mismatch between the stress that's coming in and your ability to actually let it out. Which leads us to the most important part of this whole conversation, the solution. Because here's the good news. We can't always stop the water from coming in, but we absolutely can learn how to let it out. You see, every bucket comes equipped with its own relief valves. Think of them like little taps. And these taps are your coping strategies. They're all the things you do, whether you realize it or not, to release that built-up pressure. But there is a catch. Yeah. Not all taps do the same job. Some are super effective. They're the healthy taps that actually drain the water and lower the level for good. But then there are the unhelpful ones, the ones that just give you a little distraction for a moment, or even worse, can end up adding more stress back into the bucket later on. So what do these healthy taps look like in real life? Well, they're the strategies that genuinely work. We're talking about things like getting some exercise, actually talking things out with a friend you trust, making sure you get good sleep, or even just setting a boundary by saying no. Every single one of those is a way to actively drain the stress from your bucket. And then, on the flip side, you've got the unhelpful taps. And these ones are tricky because they feel like a release at the moment, but they don't actually solve anything. Think about it. Mindlessly scrolling on your phone for hours, putting off that huge assignment, or bottling everything up inside. These things don't drain the bucket, they just put a temporary lid on it while the pressure keeps building underneath. Understanding all this isn't just about getting through a tough week or a stressful month. It's about building a fundamental skill that is going to serve you for your entire life. So, how do you actually put this into practice? Well, it all boils down to two really simple steps. First, just start to notice. Become more aware of what's filling your bucket, the little drips and the big splashes. And second, practice. Be intentional about choosing to open the taps that you know are actually going to help. And that's the key takeaway here. Stress is a natural part of life. You can't avoid it. But overflowing, that doesn't have to be. Feeling constantly overwhelmed is not the default. You have the tools. You are in control of the taps. So, as we wrap this up, I'm just going to leave you with this one question. Think about your own bucket right now. What's the water level looking like? And maybe more importantly, what's just one small, healthy tap that you can choose to open today to let a little bit of that pressure out?